All right. Well, I am live. This is Transparency and Merit. And I wanted to kind of get into the Let's Go Brandon. And it's not necessarily even advice. Well, maybe advice, or maybe just, I would say perhaps, just some thoughts on uh, on the whole issue of Let's Go Brandon. I've been around, I guess, politics and the whatnot for a long time. My father was sort of involved in politics, and he helped run a Senate campaign. This was a Democratic senator, I believe, in around 1980, and he helped run a Republican congressman. He was a pro-choice Republican, and I think the one thing that people should be aware when you take a stance is what your opposition is capable of, and what your opposition can do to you if you choose to resist. And we are living in times where people are extremely vindictive and very punitive. And anytime you talk to somebody or address somebody, the one thing you want to ask them is, do you believe that due process goes beyond a court of law? And does due process, should there be due process anytime there is punitive action? And if they do not agree with that, I don't know if you want to continue the conversation, because they believe, my belief is they kind of believe that punishment should be without due process, and they should be able to punish you without any assumption of guilt or the presumption of guilt. So anyway, Joe's on here. Joe, do you have anything to add about what I have said, or are you just listening and you know?
Well, I'm pretty much just listening, but I'm wondering if you know the following: that both the Fifth and the 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution contain a due process clause protecting citizens against arbitrary denial of life, liberty, or property by the government. These clauses have been interpreted by the United States Supreme Court as providing for the protection of these natural rights through both procedural and substantive claims. Just wondering if you are aware of how that works.
Does that mean that due process, like before punitive action takes place, that people are entitled to due process?
As a natural right, yes, but as a citizen of the United States. So it's there's probably some tricky wordplay there. It probably would benefit you to go through and really kind of read through and make sure you understand all the words, because especially when you're dealing with terms that are typically used in law and constitutional sort of when it's getting into rights, you want to know what you're talking about.
Well, it's also a moral issue. I mean, I ask people on moral grounds. Is due process the right thing to do on a moral basis before punitive action takes place? Do people have the right to defend themselves, before punishment takes place? And I don't think a lot of people, I think primarily nowadays, people on the left do not believe that.
Well, let me read this part of it. It's a different part. Like free speech, due process is both a constitutional guarantee. For example, the state may not deprive somebody of life, liberty, or property without it, as well as a vital cultural norm that people should not be assumed guilty of heinous crimes without evidence being publicly presented.
Yeah, and hate speech is not in the Constitution, yet it is, the social media that has hate speech policies. And I'm thinking for a minute, who defines it? How is it defined? And are other people allowed a seat at the table with regards to policy? And the one thing that YouTube recently did was they took away the like to dislike ratio. And I'm pretty sure that most people on YouTube, most of the creators on YouTube, wanted to keep that there. I don't think it was any kind of democratized decision at all. And the first people that I saw, that removed their the like to dislike ratio, that I noticed was the ADL, and they removed their comments, and they removed the like to dislike ratio, and a lot of these large public online newspapers also began to remove the comments. So they really don't want to hear what you have to say, and what you're about, or anything of that nature. And they mainly want to lecture to you and tell you what they believe to be right or wrong, and frame the things in their way. And it's it is a lack of respect. It is something that I guess you have to contend with at this moment. And again, this is this cultural war. And I've said this probably, like many times, this is primarily an economic battle, an economic war. And how do you get to the inroads? How do you maintain strong and strength? And how do you gain economic power? To those that have it. I mean, and what kind of inroads can happen with regards to getting some of the gold for yourself and for your own. I know that cryptocurrency is there, and and I'm sure there are perhaps independent banks, but I'm just curious to know what can happen, or how individuals can fight back, because a lot of times, if you say something or do something that people disagree with, they can take away they can take away your funds, and you have no recourse whatsoever to fight back. And this has been done a few times to a few people. I think it's done mainly to people on the right. I don't know if it's done to anybody on the left. But if you say something or do something that they disagree with, they can basically, cut you off of society. And I'm not sure what necessary, what recourses can be done and what can happen with this. But I have thoughts. Again, I think that people have to realize that we are a world economy, and these are fellow Americans, and fellow Westerners that this is happening to. And sometimes you have to look outside for resources. If you want a phone, I'm pretty sure that you have to go, if you want to build a new phone company, I believe you have to go to China for that. And even though, China did what they did, it was still funded by America, it was still funded by our elites. So again, sometimes you have to, deal with perhaps unsavory countries because they're doing that. But these unsavory, countries, I don't believe are the main source of your suffering. They're not the ones who caused the lockdowns, and they're not the ones who defunded the police. These are people in your nation who are very authoritarian and who can be very punitive if you disobey them and if you disagree with them. And this is these people were given strength by social media, and then they, simultaneously they weakened you. Anyway, Joe, do you have any comment to what I've said?
Nope. Keep on going, man.
All right, yeah. So, I mean, that's my whole crux as of now. If you are a person right now that thinks outside of the box as a human being, you can be punished. And my opinion is a lot of times it's unfair. Maybe there are times that it is fair. But what I am observing is when they punish you, you're not necessarily given proper due process and the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. And in a civil society, in a morally good society, one should be given due process and contrition. And that is not what I'm seeing. And to me, the level of unfairness and gaslighting, this has been going on for a long time. I'll get more into that later, but I think I'll end the show now because I do have to get up in the morning for work. But Joe, do you have anything to add before I call this show a day? No response. Okay, I think Joe went out for a bit, and I put him back on.
No. You know what? There's so many. There's so much more to talk about, and there's a lot of cases to get into that are directly impacted by this natural right due process. And I think we can get into this, but if we read it and really check out some of the cases in which due process was either violated or in some way germane to the fact.
And let me add, as a human being, you either fight or you flee. I don't think it is smart to ever take or tolerate abuse if you can. And sometimes you have to make plans to flee another state. And by God, I don't know where we can flee to if this country goes down the tubes, but this is the state of things. I've never seen things are basically the most I've ever observed this kind of behavior, where they don't win intellectually, they do it by force and by punishment, and a lot of things, by the way, have been, we've been gaslit for years. For example, the Hollywood blacklist, they only show one side of the issue. They never show what the communists were doing. I mean, the House on Un-American Activities was first set up for Nazis in America, and then it began with communists. And the behavior that a lot of these woke leftists, a lot of them do, are similar to what the communists did back in the day. And again, they've moved things around a little bit, and they've with different issues, but there's a form of I believe Marxism techniques of shaming and humiliating and the like. So anyway, this has been Brian with Transparency and Merit. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Thank you very much for listening, those of you that did.